Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
Right.
Today we're going to be looking at what makes successful people tick.
Okay.
Their habits, their routines, even just like their mindsets.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you might be listening to this right now, getting ready for some big meeting at work.
Right.
Maybe you're trying to climb the ladder in your field, or maybe you're just like me.
Yeah.
And you're just fascinated by what makes these high achievers do what they do.
Totally.
So we've got a whole bunch of research and articles to go through today.
Okay.
Don't worry, we'll pull out the most useful and interesting stuff for you.
Yeah.
So are you ready to unlock the secrets to success?
I mean, it is interesting, right? You'd think that all these super successful people would have like totally different approaches,
Right.
but when you actually look closely, they share a bunch of like core habits.
Yeah. Okay, so let's jump into those habits.
Okay.
The first one that really stood out to me is how they master their time.
Yeah.
Like they're so intentional with their schedules, and time blocking came up a lot in the research.
Time blocking is really powerful
Yeah.
because it shifts you from like just reacting to your day
Okay.
to actually designing it.
Okay.
Say you've got a big project due.
Yeah.
Instead of just squeezing it in between like emails and meetings,
Yeah.
you actually block off a chunk of time specifically for that project.
Yeah.
It kind of forces you to be more deliberate with how you spend your time.
That makes total sense. And then kind of tied to that, we saw a lot about like prioritization.
Yeah.
Figuring out which tasks actually deserve those like precious time blocks that you're talking about.
Right.
Things like the Eisenhower matrix and the 80-20 rule came up all the time.
Right. It's not just about being busy, it's about being productive.
Right.
And the 80-20 rule basically says that like 20% of your efforts produce 80% of your results.
Okay.
So the trick is to figure out what that like crucial 20% is for you.
Right.
And the Eisenhower matrix can help with that.
Okay.
It's where you categorize your tasks by like urgency and importance. So you can actually focus on the stuff that like truly moves the needle.
So for someone listening who's thinking, okay, but like, how do I actually apply this?
Yeah.
What's a concrete example of using this Eisenhower matrix?
Okay, so imagine you're feeling super overwhelmed with your to-do list.
Yeah.
You've got emails to answer, you have to prepare for a presentation, maybe there's a networking event you could go to, and then you've got your own personal projects that you want to work on.
Right.
So using the Eisenhower matrix, you could quickly figure out that prepping for that presentation is both urgent and important.
Okay.
So that makes it a top priority.
Got it.
Answering emails might be urgent,
Yeah.
but it's not as important.
Right.
So you could schedule a specific time for that later in the day.
Okay.
The networking event
Yeah.
could be important for like long-term career growth,
Right.
but it's not urgent.
Okay.
So you can plan for it like further out.
Yeah.
And then personal projects might fall into the not urgent, not important category, at least for now.
Okay.
So that frees you up to focus on like the more critical tasks first.
That's a really clear way to cut through the chaos.
Yeah.
And it actually leads perfectly into another concept that kept popping up, deep work.
Yeah.
It's about creating that focused, distraction-free time
Yeah.
to actually like tackle those high-impact tasks
Right.
that we just talked about with the Eisenhower matrix.
Cal Newport.
Yeah.
He really popularized this idea, and he talks about how deep work is becoming so valuable in this world of like constant distractions.
Right.
I mean, think about it. How often do you actually get to focus on a challenging task
Right.
for a solid chunk of time without checking your phone or email?
Yeah, ever.
Deep work is all about like intentionally carving out those periods of intense focus.
It's like the difference between skimming a textbook and like really absorbing the information.
Right.
You can't just like passively consume information during deep work.
Exactly.
You have to be fully present and engaged.
And research shows that when you're able to do that, the quality of your work like skyrockets.
Oh, wow.
Was when you come up with your most creative ideas, you make breakthroughs on those complex problems and
Yeah.
you really hit that flow state.
Okay, so how do these successful people actually implement this?
Yeah.
Do they all go live in cabins in the woods?
Not necessarily,
Okay.
but they do tend to be really intentional about creating the right environment.
Yeah.
It might be as simple as turning off notifications,
Right.
putting your phone in another room, or just letting your colleagues know that you're unavailable
Yeah.
for a certain period of time.
Okay.
Some people find it helpful to have a dedicated workspace just for deep work,
Yeah.
while others prefer to like switch up their location to
Ah.
minimize distractions.
So it's about finding what works for you.
Exactly.
But the key takeaway is that deep work isn't just a nice to have.
Right.
It's essential
Yes.
for producing that high quality work.
Absolutely.
And I imagine that leads us nicely into the next habit, which is the emphasis on continuous learning.
Yeah, these successful people are constantly expanding their knowledge and skills.
Uh-huh.
They're like voracious readers, always taking courses, attending workshops.
Right.
They basically view learning as an ongoing process,
Yeah.
not something that ends after you graduate.
I'm picturing those CEOs who, like, swear by reading a book a week.
Right?
But it's not just about the quantity, is it?
No.
It's also about how they approach learning.
Exactly.
They're actively seeking out new perspectives,
Mhm.
challenging their own assumptions.
They're not just passively absorbing information.
Yeah.
They're actively engaging with it, questioning it, and figuring out how it applies to their own lives
Right.
and work.
And I think this actually ties in really well with the growth mindset,
Yes.
which was another recurring theme in the research.
Definitely.
The growth mindset.
Popularized by Carol Dweck.
Yes. For our listeners who might not be familiar, can you give us a quick breakdown?
Sure. So basically, the growth mindset is the belief that your abilities aren't fixed.
Okay.
It can be developed through effort and dedication.
Got it.
It's the opposite of a fixed mindset, where you think that your intelligence or talents are just set in stone.
Right.
People with a growth mindset see challenges as opportunities to learn and grow,
Okay.
rather than threats to their ego.
Got it.
They're more likely to embrace feedback, persevere through setbacks,
Yeah.
and ultimately achieve higher levels of success.
So instead of thinking, I'm not good at this,
Yes,
they think, I'm not good at this yet.
exactly. And that subtle shift in mindset
Yeah.
can make a huge difference in how you approach challenges and setbacks.
It's like a superpower
Totally.
for learning and growth.
Yeah.
Now, so far we've been focused a lot on individual habits,
Uh-huh.
but the research also highlighted the importance of something else.
What's that?
Human connection.
Oh, yeah.
It's not all about solo grinding. These successful people seem to understand the power of relationships
Yes.
and collaboration.
They're master networkers.
Yeah.
But it goes beyond just like collecting business cards.
Right.
They really prioritize building strong,
Mhm.
mutually beneficial relationships.
Yeah.
They focus on providing value to others,
Right.
knowing that that fosters trust
Mm-hmm.
and goodwill.
It's like they're building this supportive community where everyone can thrive together.
Exactly.
And that makes me think about something else that was emphasized in the research.
What's that?
This idea of creating win-win scenarios.
Yeah.
They're not just looking out for number one.
Right.
They're looking for ways to help others succeed as well.
It's not about exploitation or manipulation. It's
Right.
about finding ways to collaborate that benefit everyone involved.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks to like a deeper level of emotional intelligence that a
Yeah.
lot of successful people have.
Yeah.
They're not just skilled at like managing tasks. They're also really good at managing relationships.
Okay, that feels like a good place to pause. Wow.
Okay.
Take a moment to think about what's resonated with you so far.
Yeah.
Which of these habits stood out the most?
Good question.
Welcome back. We've been digging into these habits of successful people,
Yeah.
and it's clear they're not just workaholics like glued to their desks
Yeah.
24/7.
Right.
The research actually pointed to something that kind of surprised me,
Oh,
like a real emphasis on well-being.
that's so important.
Yeah.
You can't pour from an empty cup, right?
Right.
These high achievers seem to get that taking care of themselves is essential for peak performance.
Yeah.
We saw a lot about prioritizing exercise, sleep, and mindfulness practices.
It's almost like they treat their well-being as like a strategic advantage.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of burning out, they're building themselves up.
Right.
Makes you wonder if all those like late-night grinds are actually counterproductive.
Yeah, there's a good chance of that.
Yeah.
The studies that we looked at showed really clear benefits of things like regular exercise
Yep.
and a solid sleep routine.
Yeah.
It can boost your focus, your decision-making, even your creativity.
So it's not just about powering through on caffeine and willpower.
Right.
These folks are like optimizing their whole system.
Exactly.
But I'm curious, did the research mention anything about like how they approach well-being?
Yeah.
Is it hardcore gym routines or just squeezing in like a quick walk?
There's definitely a range.
Oh, I see.
Some are really into those intense workouts,
Right.
but for others, it's about consistency.
Okay.
Like even short walks or stretching breaks can make a difference.
Gotcha.
Mindfulness practices came up a lot too. Things
Okay.
like meditation, deep breathing,
Definitely.
stuff like that.
It's like finding those little ways to recharge throughout the day
Yeah.
rather than waiting until you're completely drained.
Exactly.
Speaking of recharging, let's talk about goal setting.
Okay.
That feels like well-being 101 for success.
Right. Yeah.
It's not just about having these vague aspirations.
Right.
The research was clear that these successful people are really intentional
That's
about setting goals,
Yeah.
and not just any goals, SMART goals.
Okay, refresh my memory. What makes a goal SMART?
So SMART stands for
Okay.
specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound.
Okay.
So instead of saying, I want to be successful,
Right.
you would say something like, I want to launch my own online business within the next 6 months,
Okay.
generating $5,000 in monthly revenue.
Okay.
You see how that's much clearer
Yeah.
and actionable.
Totally. It's like having a roadmap.
Right.
Instead of just wandering around hoping to stumble upon success.
Exactly.
Did the research say anything about how they actually track their progress
Yes.
towards these goals?
They are big on accountability
Okay.
and tracking. Some use journals.
Okay.
Some use apps. Some even have accountability partners.
Got it.
The point is they're regularly checking in.
To see if they're on track.
Yeah.
And they course correct if they need to.
That makes sense. If you don't measure it, how do you know if it's working?
Exactly.
Like they're running their own personal experiments
Yeah.
with these constant feedback loops.
Exactly.
And that data-driven approach probably contributes to their comfort with risk-taking,
Right.
which is another interesting theme.
Yeah.
These aren't reckless gamblers,
Right.
but they're definitely willing to step outside their comfort zones when they
Yeah.
see an opportunity.
When it makes sense.
Did the research distinguish between different types of risk?
I don't know.
Because, like, quitting your stable job to start a business
Yeah.
feels way riskier than, say,
Right.
taking a public speaking class.
Yeah, it wasn't that specific.
Okay.
But there was definitely an emphasis on calculated risk.
Okay.
These people gather information,
Mm-hmm.
they weigh the pros and cons,
Right.
and they don't just jump in blindly, even
Yeah.
when they fail.
Yeah.
They seem to view it as a learning experience,
Okay.
not a catastrophe.
It's like they've reframed failure
Yeah.
as just part of the process
Uh-huh.
rather than something to be feared.
Yeah. I like that.
Which brings us to something that I think ties all these habits together.
Okay.
Purpose.
That's a great observation.
Yeah.
So many of these successful people have like a deep sense of purpose
Uh-huh.
driving their actions.
Yeah.
They're not just chasing money or fame.
Right.
They're working towards something bigger than themselves. It's
Right.
like their own personal North Star
Uh-huh.
guiding them through those tough decisions and
Yeah.
setbacks.
Do you think having that clear purpose makes them less likely to get distracted?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like by those shiny objects or short-term temptations,
Right.
they're playing the long game.
Yeah.
So they're less likely to get sidetracked
Yeah.
by things that don't align with their goals.
And that purpose probably fuels their resilience too.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
If you really believe in what you're doing,
Uh-huh.
you're more likely to bounce back from those challenges.
You know, all this talk about purpose is making me want to do some soul searching of my own.
Me too.
Maybe we should all take a quick pause
Yeah.
and encourage our listeners to do the same.
Good idea.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the habits of successful people. We've covered so much.
Yeah, a lot of ground.
From time management and deep work
Uh-huh.
to the importance of well-being,
Right.
setting those SMART goals and taking calculated risks.
So much good stuff.
It's been fascinating to see how all these seemingly like disparate habits actually work together,
Totally.
like in a powerful synergy.
Yeah.
It's like they've each mastered these different aspects of a well-rounded, high-performing life.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm curious, for someone listening who's maybe feeling overwhelmed by all this,
Yeah.
what's the key takeaway? Do they need to like perfectly implement every single habit we've talked about to be successful?
No, not at all.
Okay.
That's the beauty of it. It's not about being perfect. It's about making progress.
Yeah.
You don't have to overhaul your entire life overnight.
Right.
Just start by incorporating one new habit
Okay.
that resonates with you.
So maybe someone starts by experimenting with time blocking for a week, or committing to a 20-minute walk every day, or picking up a book on a topic they've been wanting to learn more about.
Exactly. Small changes consistently applied can lead to huge results
Okay.
over time.
And as you start to see those benefits, you'll naturally feel more motivated
Right.
to keep going.
It's like a positive feedback loop.
Uh-huh.
Success breeds more success.
But I think it's important to acknowledge that everyone's journey is going to look different.
Yeah, for sure.
What works for one person might not work for another.
Absolutely. It's about finding what works best for you,
Right.
your personality, your goals, and your lifestyle.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to experiment and adjust your approach
Right.
along the way.
So it's not about like blindly copying what others do.
Right.
It's about taking inspiration
Yeah.
and adapting it to your own unique circumstances.
Exactly.
And I think that leads us to a really crucial question that we touched on earlier. What does success actually mean to you?
That's such a powerful question.
Yeah.
Because if we don't define what success looks like for ourselves, we risk chasing someone else's version of it.
Right.
And that can lead to a lot of frustration and unfulfillment.
It's like we need to define our own destination before we can even start mapping out the route.
Exactly.
Is it about achieving financial freedom?
Yeah.
Making a difference in your community? Having more time to spend with loved ones?
Right.
Creating art that like moves people?
It's so personal.
Yeah.
Take some time to really reflect on what matters most to you. What kind of legacy do you want to leave behind? What brings you joy and fulfillment?
Once you have a clearer vision of your own definition of success, you can start to align your habits and actions with those goals.
And that's where all these habits we've been talking about become so powerful. They're not just random tips and tricks. They're tools that can help you build the life you want.
It's like they're all pieces of the puzzle that fit together to create this like fulfilling and successful life.
Right.
Whatever that looks like for you.
Beautifully said.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a challenge.
Okay. I like it.
Take some time this week to really reflect on your own definition of success, what truly matters to you. And then armed with all these insights we've explored today, start taking action.
Yes.
Pick one habit.
Okay.
One small change.
Yeah.
And commit to it.
Remember, success isn't a destination. It's a journey.
Right.
And the most important step is the one you take today.
We hope you enjoyed this exploration of the habits of successful people.
Yeah. Thanks for listening.
Until next time, keep diving deep and keep striving for your own unique version of success.
See ya.